en medio de la oscuridad del Holocausto. Un funcionario japonés se atrevió a contradecir las órdenes de su gobierno, salvando así la vida de 6.000 judíos, al expedir visas de vida que permitieron escapar del exterminio nazi.
Este hombre es Sugihara, vicecónsul de Japón en Lituania, quien pagó caro su osadía. Yad Vashem le otorgó el título de Justo entre las Naciones y encargó la Sinfonía Cántaros de Luz en su honor a la compositora Laura Auerbach.
Cántaros de Luz se inspira en el arte japonés kintsugi, conjugado con el concepto cabalístico de Sevirata Kelim, la rotura de los cántaros. Esta sinfonía llegó a México con un detalle singular: el maestro Constantine Orbelian, que dirige la obra, fue director musical de la Orquesta Sinfónica en Kaunas, la misma ciudad lituana en la que Sugihara otorgara las visas. Enlace Judío platicó con él.
El siguiente video está en inglés. Activa el subtitulaje automático de YouTube en las opciones. Luego, en configuración, activa la traducción automática al español.
You are a notable composer and pianist with Armenian roots, a people who suffered a terrible genocide more than a century ago. What has it been like for you to work on a project about another genocide, the Holocaust?
Yeah. Well, I think that, first of all, I think it's so important to keep in the memory of these horrendous things that happened, and therefore, I think it's so important when an organization like Yad Vashem actually commissioned a piece dedicated to this Japanese man who saved these, as it turned out, 6,000 people, because he gave out this 1,970 visas and there were children in the passports. And I think it's very important to keep this memory alive. I mean, if people forget, then it's terrible. It's terrible, because then these things repeat, and they repeat anyway in some fashion, some place. But still, I feel that it's very important to keep that memory and to remind people all the time that there is there's something we need to be afraid of, and it's this particular type of behavior that goes unnoticed, or people don't want to notice it. Like the famous phrase that Sugihara said was, for evil to persevere, good people have to do nothing. If you just stand by and watch, then these terrible things happen. But if somebody can stand up and say something, then it's a different story.
Of course, and you decided to say something or to play something.
Well, yes, we all, we have so much that we do in our lives, and I have that history of even my own grandmother in 1915, when all the girls were given, in 1915, she was 15 years old, and all the girls were given cyanide capsules. So just to kill themselves if they were captured by the Turks.
Wow.
I grew up with those stories. My grandmother died at the age of 92 in 1992, but she told me those stories. They never got that far. The Turks never got that far. To Armenia, to that part of Armenia. They stayed in the Turkish part of Armenia, but the Russian protectorate part they didn't touch. But it was very close. It was very close.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah, so I even have that little personal moment that I can relate as far as those stories, and just in general, my family story of coming to the United States. The World War II, the Germans, my father 4 years in a German prison camp. I'll send you the film about my parents. Yes. Russian television made a film. It's in English. I had it overdubbed. So you can see them. You can see their
What is
story.
the story of your father?
Yeah, both. My mother, father, everybody's in it. It was all filmed in 2005.
Your mother, where was she born?
In Ukraine. She
Okay.
was from Ukraine, and the Germans took her in 1943 because she was a doctor. She finished medical school in 1941, 4 days after the Germans attacked the Soviet Union. So, and then she was taken by the Germans in 43 to work in the prison camps, and my father was a prisoner of war for 4 years. And what kept him alive was the fact that he spoke German. He had a German nanny growing up just by chance. And that saved his life because he was a translator in the prison camp.
Wow.
So
And
anyway, then
how did they meet?
they met at a displaced persons camp in Ludwigsburg, Germany, after the war.
They were in the same camp,
Yes,
but
just
they,
by accident.
but they didn't meet there. They meet in the displaced person.
They met in after the war. They were all taken to other places, and my mother was in this displaced persons camp, refugee camp, and my father was in the same one, and that's where they met.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah, she came to the United States in 1943, and my father came in 1949.
I
1948, sorry, 1948 and 1949. So,
It's a word of refugees.
yes, yes, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, so I feel that it's very important to keep these moments going. The Jewish people, they have a great legacy of incredible films like Schindler's List and all these things. And there's actually a wonderful documentary about Sugihara. It's called A Conspiracy of Kindness. And PBS, the American public television station, made it about 20 years ago. It's fascinating, very interesting, with all kinds of very interesting detail and all these things. So you have some wonderful, wonderful films about this man, and the story is amazing, and how he ended up is amazing, and how I ended up with this story is even more wonderful and more interesting, because I'm the chief conductor in Kaunas, Lithuania, and that's where this whole story took place. That's why I'm conducting this piece, is because we did the world premiere in Kaunas, Lithuania. Kaunas was the capital of Lithuania at the time, and so we have this whole story that we have taken around the world. We did it in Kaunas, we did it at Carnegie Hall, we did it at other various festivals in Europe and in the United States, and now we brought it finally to Mexico.
But let's see, how did you get in touch with the number 6 symphony?
That's what I'm saying is that the reason that the composer and the cellist, who's our soloist, Christina Reiko Cooper, engaged me to perform the world premiere was because I'm chief conductor in the city that it took place in. So that's how
It was the first time it was played.
Yes. So in 2022, November 5th, we did the first world premiere performance in Kaunas, Lithuania, in the town where all of this whole story took place. And Mr. Sugihara's son came to that concert. He also came to Carnegie Hall. So it was very interesting and very moving.
What were your feelings there with your personal story and this story and the whispering? It is quite.
Yes, it's a very touching and moving story in itself. And personally, Christina Reiko Cooper, our cellist, her husband's father was saved by Sugihara. Also, I brought my very close friend, Zalman Mlotek, from the Yiddish Volksbeine Theater in New York, who was working with the chorus and the soloists, our Mexican chorus and Mexican soloists. He worked in New York as well, but I especially brought him from New York to work with with our soloists for Yiddish language pronunciation.
I see.
So I especially did that. And his father was also saved by Sugihara.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people who, out of those 6,000 people that he saved, now it's 120,000 around the world. And many of them, if you look on the site of Shone Sugihara on Wikipedia, there's a whole list of very famous people who ended up being very prosperous and famous, and they were saved by Sugihara.
What do you think? I think these people are an anomaly.
Yes,
But it is not normal, like to risk your own life and your family's life to save people. It's better
it's
to,
true. It's true. And it's very sad that people do not understand that doing the right thing it may cost you your own life. But, if their conviction is strong enough, then they will abide by their internal voice, should I say. Yeah. But that's why the film that PBS did, The Conspiracy of Kindness, is so important. The way that they did it and how he ended up suffering for it for 20 years. And then they finally found him. Можешь прикрыть дверь, просто у меня Zoom интервью. And sorry. And so, it's very important to get all of this, all of these things together, because I think it's just very important to remember.
it's a
What you
great example, but who knows who can do this?
Yeah, no, you never know what you can do unless you're faced with that problem. That's another thing. Heroes are not born; they're made by the circumstance. So I think that we have a great. I mean, when you look at somebody like Sugihara, he was a diplomat and he went against the wishes of his government. And normally diplomats don't do that, right? They normally, do what they're told, especially Japanese.
Yes, yes.
And that's one of the reasons I think that we have not performed this piece in Japan yet, because it's celebrating someone who did not obey the rules.
And this is terrible for Japan.
Yes, it's people should obey. It's not the free thinking society that that people may think it was, especially then, especially during the war.
Oh,
So, but it was very interesting if you know the story. These Jewish people, 4,000 of them went to China, and they bought tickets after 1 year, and they were starting to come to. They were buying tickets to go to Curacao because that was the end destination. You know the story, right?
no, please
Oh,
tell
you
me.
don't know. Oh, the story is amazing. So it was 1940, 1939, and the Anschluss took place. That's when Stalin and Hitler made the deal that they would split Europe in half. And Stalin would return the Baltic countries, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Finland to the Soviet Union, and he would split Poland in half with Hitler. And so in September of 1939, they came in from both sides. And Hitler took Austria, Czechoslovakia, and half of Poland. And Stalin took Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and had a terrible winter war in Finland. Winter of 1939-1940. Anyway, so the Soviets then became the heads of the country. So the new capital of the country is Moscow, as far as Lithuania is concerned. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And so they decided that they needed to move out all of the embassies, because Kaunas was the capital, and they had embassies of various countries there. So they told them all to move everything to Moscow and to move out, and they give them 1 year to do it. So 1940 rolls around, and all the consulates are gone except the Japanese and the Dutch. And the Japanese consulate the 20 Jewish people from Poland. This is important also. They were Polish Jews, not Lithuanian, because if you were Lithuanian, you're home. You don't need to go anywhere. But these were Polish Jews who escaped the camps. They had the J in their passports, the stamp that they were Jewish and all these things in their German or Polish passports. And so they asked him for visas to go to Japan. And he telegraphed Japan, and they said, no, do not give them visas. All right. That evening, he goes to a farewell party with the Dutch consul from Holland. And he said, Sugihara thought, is there any place in the world that one can go without a visa? So he said, yes, you can go to the island of Curacao in the Caribbean, which you do not need a visa. And it's a Dutch protectorate. So he says, I will give you a document saying that they will do that. They can go there, and you give them transit visas. So he gave them transit visas, 20 people. The next day, 100 people show up. Next day, 200 people show up. For the transit visas, he did not need to ask the Home Office. But the documentation was all so exact, like for everything that Japanese people do. And so he ended up saving all those people. And then he went to Berlin from Kaunas, and from Berlin to Prague, Prague to Bucharest. The end of the war, he was at the Japanese embassy in Bucharest. And of course, the Soviets overtook all of Eastern Europe. And he was in the detention camp for a year, or less, maybe 6 months. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the war ended in September. And he finally ended up going home in February of 1946. And they threw him out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He was not given any pension. He was not given anything. He was 46 years old. And so he ended up going to the village where he was born. And he was a highly educated man with 6 languages. And he was relegated to being a vendor of light bulbs in the village. So he had a little cart. He would be going down the street with a cart and selling light bulbs.
Wow.
Yeah. So 20 years goes by, and he ends up going. They ask him if he would like to go to Moscow to a representative office of the Japanese company, because he spoke Russian. His first wife was Russian. And so he was married for 13 years to this Russian lady. And so he ended up going to Moscow, and one day he's walking home from work, 1966, and a man comes up to me and says, are you Sugihara-san? He said, no, I'm not. Because in Japanese tradition, samurai tradition, if you bring shame to your name, you change the name so that the shame does not follow your family. So that's what happened.
And he said, I'm not. And
no, he finally said he was, because he said, you saved my life, you saved my parents, and you saved 6,000 people. All of Israel is looking for you. So he had to admit, of course, that it's him. So anyways, that's how his life ended up. And he died at the age of 82 or 83. But back in Japan, he worked in Moscow for 15 years. And that was his life. And now he's being commemorated. Now he's being honored after all these years.
wow, posthumous honor.
Yeah.
Talking about heroes, how did Symphony No. 6 arrive to Mexico?
Well, we had, so very thankfully, Christina Reiko Cooper had known Scott Yu, who's the chief conductor of the Mexico City Philharmonic, for many years. And she studied with him at Aspen Music Festival, other places, things like that. And so she asked, she knew him. And that's when he actually said that he would like to do it. So that was the thing, and we were supposed to do it last spring, and then there was an issue. There were strikes at Bellas Artes. I remember Bellas Artes. There was some kind of strike going on. This is before the elections. There was something happening in Mexico City, and we couldn't find the chorus wasn't able to do that day that we needed to do the performance, those 2 days. And so we postponed it and we came back now and we did it now.
Wow. And I know everybody cooperated to make it
Yes,
happen.
yes, everybody. Yes, everybody was very kind. Everybody did an incredible job. The orchestra was wonderful. My Mexican soloists were wonderful. Everybody was wonderful.
But you also wanted this to happen in Mexico, right?
Yes, yeah, because I know that there's a vibrant Jewish community there, and I know that I thought it would just be an important piece to do. It's not easy listening. Let's face it. It's a very important piece with a very important story. So it's a matter of getting it out there, and I think it was very intelligent just to play one piece because you cannot be distracted because it takes 1 hour and it's very emotionally draining. And I
For
think
you also.
yes, I mean, yeah, because it's a very important piece of music. It's if especially since I studied the poetry and I know what the words mean and I know what the singers are saying. It's all in Yiddish, so I mean, unless you know Yiddish, you don't know. And of course, unfortunately, we did not have our subtitles, so people could not follow because all the singing was in Yiddish. So unfortunately, they could not follow everything.
You had to learn Yiddish.
People. Pardon?
You had to learn Yiddish to
Yes.
understand.
Yes, it's in Yiddish.
Yes, but you had to
I
learn.
didn't learn Yiddish. I did not learn Yiddish. I just know the translations of everything. And so we had the translations were in the booklet. But if you're looking in your telephone, then you cannot enjoy the performance because they have the online program. But I just think it's important to have the subtitles. So hopefully, if we do it someplace again in South America, hopefully, or other city in Mexico, we will have subtitles. I think it's very important.
Like a ribbon or something.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And who financed this act?
In Mexico City?
Yes.
The Mexico City Philharmonic. They paid for it.
They paid for it.
Yeah, it was their orchestra, their concert hall. They hired the chorus. They paid everybody. They paid for it.
Oh, wow. It's interesting. And what was your experience like with the Mexico City Philharmonic Orchestra?
Excellent orchestra.
In the presentation of the symphony.
Excellent orchestra. Everybody was very attentive. It turned out I knew many of the musicians in the orchestra. They had performed with me in other orchestras in Mexico City. And even a couple of them performed with me 20 years ago when I conducted Renee Fleming at Palacio Bellas Artes.
I see.
So it was very nice to meet my old friends, I should say. And they played beautifully. The chorus was wonderful. My Mexican soloists were fantastic. And I brought the Whispers again from New York, and I also brought our beautiful soprano, Elizaveta Olekovich, who had done it with us at Carnegie Hall. I also brought her. So she was there, and that was very nice to have her there as well with us.
A few months ago, you were appointed executive director and music director of the New York City Opera. What can you tell us about this new phase of your musical career?
Well, we'll see if I'm successful or not. It's hard to take a very famous organization and to lift it from the condition it's in now. So I'll see what I can do. I'll try to do my best, and I will try to get everything organized properly.
Well, there you have problems now?
Oh, there's financial problems, of course. In America, all the cultural institutions are on, they don't get any funding from the state. So it's all private funding. So I'm working on getting private funding.
Wonderful. And in turbulent time like the ones we live on, of endless wars and uncertainty, what can Symphony No. 6 do for human beings?
Well, my other comment that I usually make is, people think that they don't need to vote or they don't need to be involved because most people think that it makes no difference, right? That it makes no difference. Oh, big deal. If I vote, if I don't vote, it's going to be what it's going to be. Que sera, sera. I mean, that type of mentality. But it shows you that one person does make a difference. And what he did saved those people because he went against the government, but he went with his heart and his soul. And when you are convinced about what you're doing, it made no difference. Of course, he didn't know that the reaction would be so severe when he would return, because they were in the middle of the war and they were Axis powers with Italy and Romania and Hungary and Germany and Japan, right? And I'm sure maybe even he thought that they would win the war. You never know what people are thinking because their information is always very sidelined by what their government is doing. We have that situation now here in the States and all these other places where we have all these crazy things happening. But in any case, I just think that it's very important to mention that one person does make a difference. It's always one person who starts to do something wonderful, and it helps, as it turns out, 120,000 people.
And we thought all the wars and all the atrocities were in the past, and then October 7 happened.
Yes.
What are your feelings about this?
Well, October 7th, I have my own feelings about, why that happened and how that happened. It's just incredibly sad on all fronts. It's horrible for the Israeli people that were killed and murdered, and that nightmare. It's a nightmare for Palestinians, and it just shows you what, nobody really cares, 50,000 people died. Every time I see that, my heart bleeds. It's awful. And, you have these hostages. I cannot imagine being in some jail, someplace underground for 2 years. I just cannot imagine what my relatives, my parents, my, children would think if something happened like that, or what I would think, God forbid, if something happened like that to me. But it's horrible. And this is 2025. We're not talking about 1915 or 1940 or, these are supposed to be civilized people. And where are they? Where are they? Where is negotiation? Where is discussion? Where is, trying to do anything possible to save lives of human beings? I mean, the World War II showed that nobody really cared about people, right? The Germans didn't care how many Russians they killed. The Russians didn't care how many Germans they killed. I mean, it's a disaster when nobody cares and people are expendable. And before that was 20 years before was World War I. Terrible. Yeah. Mexico's been very smart, never got involved. Never got involved. So it's very smart behavior.
Thank
Great.
you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.